I got to say, Flex, Sunday I had an absolute belter of a day on the sofa. I watched the Old Firm derby,
which
was way better than Arsenal-Chelsea.
Incredible, yeah.
I watched the second half of Arsenal-Chelsea, had a little bit of a nap.
Yeah.
Into the Carabao Cup final, and then I watched Man United 3, Leicester. Always love seeing Leicester lose. And for me...
Was you on the edge of your seat, Max? Was you like, oh my God?
Certainly wasn't on the edge of my seat, but I was... my missus was cooking, and when Rasmus Hojlund scored, I just went, go on, lad.
Yeah.
And she thought Forest were playing. She don't really know much about football, to be fair. And how much of a relief is it for a young lad who works really hard to be back on a score sheet?
Yeah, it's a massive relief for him. You could see in the celebration. And ironically, he took that goal like somebody who actually has been in good form, who's confident, who's on his weaker side, put it onto his weaker side on purpose, puts it in the bottom corner, really crisp, couple of touches, out your feet, bang, cross goal. That looked like the rhythm of somebody who's been scoring a lot of goals. But he's had a real tough time, actually, and he's had a tough time since he's been at United in general. Last season, the conversation around him wasn't as intense as this. It wasn't as scathing as this. Last season, the conversation around Rasmus Hojlund was first season, scored 16 goals in all comps. You went, this kid's got a little bit.
He's a young lad.
He's a young lad, but he needs some help. And then the scouting department again let him down because at the point of where he needs help, because he didn't get much from Martial because he was injured last year, they came back with Joshua Zirkzee, who by his own admission is not even a striker. So he still has no help. Yeah. So, and then the team changed and then his confidence really did get sucked out of him, and then it's like, okay, you can't control the ball. Yeah. You can't make a basic pass. It's bouncing off of you. You can't get a shot off you. And his head was absolutely fried. So I still think there's question marks over... He's still not good enough to lead the line for Man United.
Do you think he can be? Because he's only young, and I'll just look at physically what he can offer.
Yeah.
He's one of the quickest players in the league. He's incredibly strong.
Yeah.
Like, from the outside looking in, obviously I don't watch United as much as you, and I don't know as much about United as you, but I just think, we shouldn't be too quick to write him off. Players can improve and change and develop, and Ruben Amorim is clearly a talented coach and clearly is still trusting in him, although he's not got much else choice. But do you think maybe people are writing him off too quickly?
That happens all the time in football with fans, 100%. You don't, when Victor Gyökeres was 20, 21, 22.
Exactly, yeah.
Couldn't hit a barn door at Swansea, couldn't get in at Brighton, until he then goes to Coventry, finds himself, then goes to Sporting, and now he's in the middle of his 20s. Now he's this player that everybody wants. And it wasn't like that once. I spoke to a Swansea fan, actually. He said when he was here, he was terrible. Yeah. So, and he wasn't playing for Man United then. So, under this type of pressure. So, you're right, Max. You can't... I think the problem at Man United is it's very difficult. We're so bad, and the recruitment's been so poor, it's very difficult to judge how good somebody is and how bad they actually are. Because, now you look at Anthony, who's at Real Betis. All of a sudden, you're going, well... He's scoring. There's a little bit. He's not like this worst player we've ever seen anymore. He's got his top. He's doing backflips. I didn't even know he could do backflips. So now he's out of this environment.
But he's only a little lad, to be fair. He's not got far to go round, has he?
But I just didn't know he could do it. It was too miserable.
But to be fair, I didn't know he could score goals and assists.
Exactly. And now look.
Yeah.
So with Rasmus, I think if you bring in somebody who makes Rasmus be able to be somebody who can come off the bench and learn from, fine. But he's an expensive player to have. I know it's not his fault,
isn't it? That's indicative.
But it's Man United in the past 12 years. So if the right money came in, I couldn't promise that Ineos / the manager as well, if he's not fancying that type of striker.
Well, Jim Ratcliffe name checked him.
He did.
Which you sort of think, I understand with the Casemiros because he probably wants to force him out, being on 300 plus grand a week. But for someone like Rasmus Hojlund, who's a young lad who's clearly giving his all, I felt like that was a little bit, misdirected from to Jim Ratcliffe. But I just sort of hope the best for him. To be fair, I don't know what it is about me, sort of the ex-teacher, rooting for a young kid, but fair play to him. Great to see him score goals, and you never know. He might hit an absolute purple patch.
If he does, it's the perfect time to do it. But you speak about purple patches. Actually, that's what we've learnt about Hojlund. He's very streaky. Last year, he went 14 goals, 14 games without a goal. Then he got I think it was 9 in 7 or something like that. Was on a record run. Then he got injured. Then he was poor when he came back. But then whilst he couldn't score in the Premier League, he spent time at the top end of the goal scoring charts in the Champions League. Yeah. So, and his European record in Europa League and is actually pretty good. Yeah. So there's something there, but if you continue to play him in this mould with him as the main striker, it will stunt his development, and he's better off probably going back to Serie A.
Someone who hasn't been affected by the issues at Manchester United in terms of their performances and their goals, their assists, is Bruno Fernandes. I mean, I think he's come out really well out of all this, with all of the pressure, with all of the criticism.
He's always been this player. I don't get it, Max. Like, what Bruno Fernandes is doing, he's always been that. He was that when Man United was second under Ole, he was that. When Marcus Rashford got 30 goals, Bruno was that. So when we're 14th and 13th, Bruno's still that. So that shows me, if a player can keep his consistency in a team that fluctuates in its own consistency, it shows me that one player is not the problem. How can he be?
And we were talking in the break, shows that player, we agree, is world class.
100%.
Despite the context of where Manchester United are. What did you make of the way he responded to Roy Keane's criticism? That he said, brilliant. I thought that whilst I don't like the flappiness and sort of what can come across as petulance, the fact that the way that he dealt with that, I thought showed a lot.
The way he's dealt with I caught up with him after the game against Sociedad, and one of the reporters next to me asked him that and he said, I respect Roy Keane. Yeah. I understand that he's from a different era and the standards are high, etc. And then he went one further with Dave Jones, I think, after the Leicester game and did it again. So he's been very, very humble in that because he gets it. He's not an egotistical player. It comes across with a few arms go up and etc. because of the will to win. And okay, that can be tempered a little bit, tapered down a little bit. I get that. But overall, what he does on and off the pitch, when you see him around Carrington, you see how other players speak about him, you see how the staff speak about him, you see him trying to pay his own money out of his own pocket to make sure people, the members of the family from the women's team can get there, and Ineos say, no, don't do that, it's going to make us look bad. He tries to do all the right things in terms of leading his team, but guess what? On the pitch, forget that's PR, if you want to call that PR. We'll try and talk to him on the pitch then. Who's the guy getting the numbers? Who's the guy having the performances? Who's the guy leaving it all out there? Man United players get accused all the time of having weak mentality, badges too heavy, shirts too heavy. Can't say that about Bruno Fernandes. In their worst ever period. I'm sure Bruno would love to have been born 20 years earlier. Yeah. So he could have played with Scholes and Beckham imagine if Bruno was behind Tevez, Ronaldo, Rooney, Berbatov. Oh my God. And you got Nicky Butt saying he wouldn't get a kick. But yes, he would. Yes, he would.
Well, he'd take Nicky Butt's shit.
And with the greatest respect of our legends, someone like Nicky Butt, you don't get to play as long as you did with the guys that you did if you're not a decent player. But you don't get to play in a team as bad as Bruno's and put up the type of numbers and dine at the table numbers-wise with some of the greats if you're not a phenomenal player. Yeah. Bruno is top 2 or 3, sometimes top 1 in his position in the world. Out of all the other attacking midfielders who get lauded, so if you look at Florian Wirtz and Musiala and Kevin De Bruyne and Martin Odegaard and etc., there's a few off the top of my head. Bruno Fernandes is there or thereabouts or surpassing all of the favourite guys who were lauded as being amazing because they're in great teams.
I just wonder about Bruno Fernandes, that he might look back on his career, not necessarily regret it, but think, crikey, if I was played for a different team,
100%,
then I'd have won a lot more.
100%.
But I do think
he could have left this summer. He said that in the interview as well. He said, I could have left. But he spoke to the hierarchy. They said they want him. He wants to be part of it. His choice, again, as a neutral, you can say, why have you done that? United ain't going to get you anything serious anytime soon, which I probably agree with. But you're right. Could he have gone to Bayern Munich? Could he have gone to wherever? I don't know. But you're right. He may look back on his career and think, I spent my best days sort of keeping Man United just about relevant. Yeah.
Now, it wouldn't be a Manchester United chat if we didn't talk about another increase in season ticket prices. 5%, about £2.50, I think it works out, per game. What do you make of this? Did you expect it to be more? Do you think it's fair enough? Or do you think that it's, again, another smack in the face to loyal local United supporters where life isn't easy and their club is asking for yet more money from them?
Yeah, I think this is a difficult one, Max, because it's a multitude of what you just said, right? You've got one side that the season tickets have been frozen for 11 years, which is quite good in this day and age for Man United as well.
That's unheard of.
Exactly, unheard of, with the cost of living going up as well. We said yesterday on the show that, you try to go to Nando's for the same meal 5 years ago as now. You try and go and get a meal deal in your local supermarket. It's everything's gone up, right? But your United ticket prices have been frozen for 11 years. And with that, from fans, comes a sort of expectation and a demand that that's how it's always going to be. when in life things go up. Fuel goes up to get to the games. This is how it goes.
Well,
Food goes.
It's
just inflation. So it's in line with inflation. And £2.50 extra a game, I don't think is actually as significant as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
However, I do think you can't just be seen to just accept it really, really easily, because if you give off that as a fan base, you give off the signal to Ineos that we can just keep going up and up and up and up with no pushback. So I understand that. The concessions have been frozen as well for under 16s. That's a positive.
That is good. There was a caller on Jim White yesterday with Jim and Simon who said that his had doubled. How could that happen?
The pensioners have doubled, because they've gone from 50% to 25%. And the reason why they're saying that was to stop a discrepancy where some were getting 25%, some were getting 50%. So they just put it all at 25%.
So rather than drag it down, we'll drag it up.
Exactly. So that, I agree. I don't like seeing fans. I sit next to a man who's been going for like 25 years, got his name engraved on the seat. Joe, what a guy. So when I think of him who's retired, who now has to pay double, I think they should have left the concessions and OAPs where they need to be. And, even category games, Man United don't do that. Loads of other Premier League clubs do that. I don't know if Forest do it. Category A, Category B.
I've got a season ticket, mate, so it
doesn't really affect. But yeah, it's the same. But the members, I do know for memberships and other clubs, if you're playing one of the traditional top six, it will be a little bit more than if you're playing Ipswich at home.
Yeah.
That's kind of a running thing. Man United have never done that. They're introducing that now. So, but also what I would say is the timing. If we're being honest, it's the timing of this of, the club's in debt. You've got the owner saying that, we're going to run out of money by the end of 2025. They never announced a new stadium.
And then the next day say we're going to spend $2 billion on a new
and then
stadium.
the next thing is actually, fans, can you pay a bit more? So the optics and the timeline of how you're doing this and the team's rubbish. If we were in the top 4, looking like we're going in the right direction, and you didn't cut the food and you didn't do this, but that was the only thing that went up, people might stomach it a little bit better.
Yeah. Do you know, I heard Sir Jim Ratcliffe or the higher-ups ordered staff at the training ground to send sellotape back because it wasn't deemed essential.
Use blue tack instead, mate. Yeah. It's other ways to stick things down, isn't there?
Well, I tell you what, Jim Ratcliffe is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't he? Because you're right, the optics are not great.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.